The rain over the Brooklyn docks felt like needles, the kind of freezing drizzle that soaked through even a high-tech spandex weave. Peter Parker clung to the underside of a rusted pier, water dripping off his nose. Below him, 4 men in expensive tactical gear were loading a series of reinforced titanium cases into a nondescript black van. "Honestly, guys," Peter whispered, his voice barely audible over the crashing waves. "Midnight at the docks? It's so cliché. Can't we do a heist at a brunch spot once in a while? The lighting is better, and there's mimosas." He dropped from the pier, firing 2 web lines. He caught the back of the van, using his momentum to swing like a pendulum, his boots connecting squarely with the chests of 2 guards. They flew back, hitting a stack of pallets with a sickening thud. "Spider-Man!" one of the remaining thieves barked, reaching for a sidearm. In the flesh, well, in the spandex, mostly in the damp, uncomfortable dampness, Peter quipped. He flipped over the shooter, webbing the man's hand to his own holster before he could draw. A quick spin, a mid-air roundhouse kick, and the 3rd man was unconscious. The 4th thief, the leader, scrambled toward the last open case. Peter's spider sense gave a low, strange hum, not the sharp sting of a bullet, but a heavy, rhythmic thrumming in the base of his skull. The thief grabbed a small, ornate object from the velvet lining of the case, but before he could move, Peter webbed his feet to the asphalt and yanked him backward. "I'll take that, thanks. It looks like a very expensive paperweight, and my desk at the Bugle is a mess," Peter said, webbing the man's hands together for good measure. He picked up the object. It was a cube, roughly 4 inches across, etched with intricate brass patterns that seemed to dance under the dock lights. It felt unnaturally heavy, and the metal was warm, pulsing, almost like a heartbeat. "Police are 5 minutes out, guys," Peter said, looking at the unconscious pile of henchmen. "Don't go anywhere. Not that you can, being stuck to the floor and all. Science!" He tucked the cube into a hidden compartment in his suit and swung away into the foggy New York skyline. Peter's apartment in Queens was a mess of half-finished inventions, empty pizza boxes, and overdue bills. He pulled off his damp mask, his hair matted with sweat. After a hot shower, he sat at his workbench, the golden brass cube sitting under the harsh light of a desk lamp. "Okay, let's see what you are," Peter muttered, sliding his jeweler's loop over his eye. "High-grade brass, some kind of wood? Maybe mahogany? No tool marks. It looks like it was grown rather than built." His fingers traced the grooves. The spider sense was still buzzing, a dull, nauseating vibration. He should have turned it in. He should have given it to the Avengers or the Sanctum Sanctorum. But the engineer in him, the boy who loved puzzles, couldn't let it go. "It's a sliding block puzzle," he realized. "If I rotate the top axis and slide the corner plate..." Click. A chime echoed through the small apartment. It was a sound of perfect, crystalline purity, yet it felt like a razor blade sliding across his eardrums. The air in the room suddenly turned frigid. Peter's breath came out in a white mist. "Okay, that's not a normal feature," Peter said, a nervous joke dying in his throat. "Alexa, turn up the heat." The walls of his apartment began to bleed. The floral wallpaper of his bedroom didn't just peel, it unraveled like skin, revealing rusted, damp metal beneath. The smell of his leftover pepperoni pizza vanished, replaced by the overwhelming, cloying scent of vanilla and rotting meat. The floor beneath his desk shifted. The familiar linoleum was gone, replaced by a cold, wet stone floor. Chains, dark and slick with oil, began to descend from a ceiling that now stretched into a dark, infinite void. Peter scrambled back, his hand hitting his mask. He pulled it on just as 4 figures emerged from the shadows. They were nightmares draped in flayed leather. Their flesh was gray, pulled taut over metal frames, decorated with surgical scars that defied anatomy. At their center stood a figure of terrifying composure. His head was a perfect grid of deep, bloody incisions, and at every intersection, a long steel nail was driven into his skull. "The box," the figure spoke. His voice was a calm, resonant baritone that felt like a weight pressing against Peter's chest. "You have opened it. We are here." "Yeah, listen," Peter said, his voice cracking slightly despite his effort to remain spidey. "I think there's been a mistake. I was looking for the instruction manual, maybe a how-to video on YouTube. I didn't mean to call whatever this is. Are you guys a very intense metal band? Because the Neighborhood Association has a strict noise policy." "We are explorers in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. I am Pinhead." "I'm going to go with demons, John. Can I call you John?" Peter dropped into a combat crouch, his muscles tensing. "Look, Pinhead, this is my apartment. I pay rent here, mostly. I'm going to have to ask you to take your chains and your friends and leave." "You offer us trivialities. You have summoned us to the shore of your world. Now we shall show you the ocean."
"Enough talk," Peter lunged. He was a blur of red and blue, his proportional spider strength allowing him to clear the distance in a heartbeat. He delivered a thunderous punch aimed directly at Pinhead's chest, a blow that could level a concrete wall. The punch landed, but it felt like hitting an anvil made of frozen lead. Pinhead didn't even rock back. He looked down at Peter's fist with a gaze of infinite cold patience. "Your strength is a physical construct," Pinhead whispered. "It has no currency here." Peter fired a webline at Pinhead's face, hoping to blind him, but a chain tipped with a jagged meat hook whipped out of the darkness and shredded the webbing in midair. Peter jumped, sticking to the wall, except the wall was no longer his wall. It was a weeping lattice of rusted iron. "Okay, new plan," Peter yelled, swinging a heavy metal filing cabinet at the group. The Cenobite known as Butterball caught the cabinet with one hand and crushed it into a ball of scrap metal as if it were a soda can. "Seriously?" Peter's lenses widened. "Do you guys have a gym membership for the damned? Because that's impressive." He tried to retreat, to find the exit of his apartment, but the door was gone. There was only the labyrinth. Pinhead raised a hand, and a dozen chains erupted from the shadows beneath Peter's feet. He used his agility to flip and twist, dodging the first few, but the chains moved with a sentient, malevolent grace. They weren't just following him, they were anticipating him. A sharp, stinging pain erupted in Peter's calf. He looked down and saw a hook had buried itself in his muscle. He let out a strangled cry, the sensation unlike anything he had ever felt. It wasn't just a wound, it felt as if his very nerves were being tuned like guitar strings. "You have such sights to see, Peter Parker," Pinhead said, appearing suddenly inches from Peter's mask. How do you know my name?" Peter gasped, his vision blurring as more hooks found purchase in his shoulders and arms. He tried to pull away, but the chains tightened, suspending him in midair. "The box knows the soul that solves it," Pinhead said. He reached out a pale, slender finger and touched the white lens of Peter's mask. "We know the boy who hides behind the spider. We know the guilt you carry for the old man. We know the pain you feel for the girl you couldn't catch. We do not want your secrets, Peter. We want your sensation. We will turn your jokes into screams, and your screams into a symphony." Peter struggled, his muscles bulging as he tried to snap the chains. "Get out of my head!" He managed to snap one chain, but 3 more took its place, sinking deeper into his flesh. The brutality was methodical. A hook tore through his side, another pierced the palm of his hand. The suit, his pride, his protection, was being shredded along with his skin. The jokes were gone. There was no quip for the feeling of his ribs being slowly pried apart by rusted iron. There was only a raw, guttural howl that echoed through the void of what used to be his bedroom. Peter's strength finally failed. He hung in the center of the room, a broken marionette of red, blue, and crimson. His mask was torn, revealing one bruised, tear-filled eye. "Please," Peter whispered, the word barely a breath. "Stop!" "The please is the sweetest part of the song," Pinhead said, stepping closer. He looked at Peter with something that almost resembled affection, the way an artist looks at a fresh canvas. "Do not fear. We will not let you die. Death is a mercy we do not permit. You will live forever in the moment of your greatest agony. You will be our masterpiece." Pinhead reached out and gently took the mask, peeling it away from Peter's blooded face. Peter looked around his apartment one last time. He saw a framed photo of Aunt May on a shelf that was slowly dissolving into shadow. "I'm sorry, May," he choked out. "Your sorrow is delicious," Pinhead noted. He turned to the other Cenobites. "Take him. Let the harvest begin." The chains gave a final violent yank. Peter Parker was pulled backward into the blue flickering light of the schism. The walls of his apartment slammed back into place. The smell of rotting meat evaporated. The temperature returned to a comfortable 68 degrees. The Lament Configuration clattered to the floor, its brass plates sliding back into their original inert position. In the quiet of the Queen's night, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. The photo of Aunt May remained on the shelf, but the boy in the suit was gone. Spider-Man was no longer a hero of New York. He was a new addition to the architecture of hell, a soul being taught the true meaning of the word exquisite.